Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari 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 Gopi Jana Vallabha Shrimadbhagavatam Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Shrimadbhagavatam Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Shrimadbhagavatam Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Yashodanandana Braja Janandana Yashodanandana Braja Janarandana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Natira Vanachari Natira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari 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 Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Shrimadbhagavatam Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Shrimadbhagavatam Yashodanandana Braja Janarandana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Srila Prabhupada ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki Ram Veda Bhaktivinoda Tagore Premanande. All glories to Samudra. All glories to Samudra. All glories to Samudra. All glories to Shishi Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya. Naram Chaiva Narottamam. Devim Saraswatim Vyasim. Tato Jayamudiriye. Nastapraya Shubhapadreshu. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavati Tamashloke. Nityam Bhagavati Naishtiki. Hare Krishna. Grantaraj Shrimadbhagavatam ki. Reading from Canto 1, Chapter 7, Text 37. Text 37. The son of Drona punished. Swaprananya parapranay. Praptushnati agranaha kalaha. Tadvadastasya hi shreyo. Yadoshad yati ataha purnam. Swaprananya parapranay. Prapdushnati ragnaha kalaha. Tadvadastasya hi shreyo. Yadoshad yati ataha puman. Swaprananya parapranay. Prapnushyati agnaha kalaha. Tadvadastasya hi shreyo. Yadoshad yati adaha punam.
Swaprananya paraprane.
Swaprananya parapranay.
Prapushnatya grinakala.
Prapnushnatya gnakala.
Tatvadastasya hi shreyo. Yadyo sadhyatyadha puman.
Swaprananya paraprane. Prapushnati
Swapranan, one owns life. Yah, one who. Parapranai, at the cost of others' lives. Prapushnati, maintains properly. Aganaha, shameless. Kala, wretched. Tatvada, killing of him. Tasya, his. He, certainly. Shreya, well-being. Yat, by which. Doshat, by the fault. Yati, goes. Adaha, downwards. Puman, a person. Translation and purport. By His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. A cruel and wretched person who maintains his existence at the cost of others' lives deserves to be killed for his own well-being, otherwise he will go down by his own actions. Please repeat. A cruel and wretched person who maintains his existence at the cost of others' lives deserves to be killed for his own well-being, otherwise he will go down by his own actions. Purport. A little bit long purport. A life for a life is just punishment for a person who cruelly and shamelessly lives at the cost of another's life. Political morality is to punish a person by a death sentence in order to save a cruel person from going to hell. That a murderer is condemned to a death sentence by the state is good for the culprit, because in his next life he will not have to suffer for his act of murder. Such a death sentence for the murderer is the lowest possible punishment offered to him. And it is said in the Shrimad Shastras that men who are punished by the king on the principle of life for life are purified of all their sins, so much so that they may be eligible to be promoted to the planets of heaven. According to Manu, the great author of civic codes and religious principles, even the killer of an animal is to be considered a murderer, because animal food is never meant for civilized man, whose prime duty is to prepare himself for going back to Godhead. He says that in the act of killing an animal, there is regular conspiracy by the party of the sinners, and all of them are liable to be punished as murderers, exactly like a party of conspirators who kill a human being combinedly. He who gives permission, he who kills the animal, he who sells the slaughtered animal, he who cooks the animal, he who administers distribution of the foodstuff, and at last he who eats such cooked animal food are all murderers, and all are liable to be punished by the laws of nature. No one can create a living being despite all advancement in material science, and therefore no one has a right to kill a living being by one's own independent whims. For the animal eaters, the scriptures have sanctioned restricted animal sacrifices only, and such sanctions are there just to restrict the opening of the slaughterhouses and not to encourage animal killing. The procedure under which an animal sacrifice is allowed in the scriptures is good both for the animal sacrifice and the animal eaters. It is good for the animal in the sense that they sacrifice animals at once promoted to the human form of life after being sacrificed at the altar. And the animal eater is saved from the grosser types of sin, eating meat supplied by organized slaughterhouses, which are ghastly places for breeding all kinds of material afflictions to society, country, and the people in general. The material world itself is always full of anxieties, and by encouraging animal slaughter, the whole atmosphere becomes polluted more and more by war, pestilence, famine, and many other unwanted calamities. Om Jnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagatatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Paridana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamstra Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Krupa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Prachayane Nirvishesha Shunyavari Pashyata Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Text number 37 again. A cruel and wretched person who maintains his existence at the cost of others' lives deserves to be killed for his own well-being. Otherwise, he will go down by his own actions. So, you can't hear? So, Krishna is speaking this verse, and he is speaking to Arjuna. Krishna has a habit of speaking to Arjuna, right? Is going to speak a lot, or has spoken a lot already in the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. So here Krishna is telling Arjuna that he should kill who? Ashwatthama. Because Ashwatthama has performed a very heinous act. So there are various rules in society to be followed. Now, the primary reason why Arjuna should kill Ashwatthama is? Huh?
For using that Brahmastra.
For using the Brahmastra? So he won't go further down? Killing innocent children? But what is the primary reason why Arjuna should kill Ashwatthama? To abide by the principles of mankind? Because Krishna is telling him to.
Okay.
So, there are hierarchies of authority. And who is the supreme authority? Krishna. When Krishna says to do something, it needs no explanation. It needs no justification. Krishna need not speak this verse, the prior verse, a person who knows the principle of religion does not kill an enemy who is careless, intoxicated, etc. He need not speak these verses to accomplish the goal. Why? Because Krishna is the absolute authority. What makes him the absolute authority? Because he is the absolute truth. There is nothing beyond Krishna. Right? He is the supreme personality of Godhead. And he has the domain of perfection. Are any of us perfect? Not Not even close. Not even close. Right? So when Krishna speaks, there can be no imperfection. We may perceive imperfection. But when Krishna speaks, it's absolute. And if we mold our life according to this, see, life becomes very easy. Very simple. We need not work so hard to find the answers in life. Because Krishna tells us very simply what to do and also what not to do. Perfect instruction. Do this and don't do that. Don't eat meat. Don't intoxicate. Don't have illicit sex. And don't gamble. And do devotional service. And even the how, he explains. Chanting, reading, rendering service. Following in the footsteps of Guru, Sadhu, Shastra. Simple. So Krishna is the ultimate authority. Now, in society, we see there are other authorities, right? We have the laws of Detroit, Michigan. Then we have the state laws, the laws of the state. Then we have laws of the country. And to some degree, we have some international laws. They're not so well governed. But that was not always the case. So we have this hierarchy of authority, right? If, for example, the city of Detroit says it's, legal to vote at 16, but the national law says you have to be 18. Whose law governs?
National.
Right? So there's a hierarchy of laws, right? So, and we have this practical example. I was driving down Jefferson the other day, and there are traffic lights. And in those traffic lights, there's red, yellow, green. Red tells me I have to stop. Green tells me I have to go. Yellow says, watch out. Not punch it. But I was at a red light, and there was a police officer waving me through. So what am I supposed to do?
Go through the red light.
Go through the red light. Because in that instance, the police officer is the higher authority over the same police officer who would give me a ticket if I went through the red light without the authority. Understand?
Yes.
Right? The same police officer, if he's not waving me through, and I proceed through, would give me a ticket. So there is these authorities that tell us right from wrong. But if I, on my own desire, said, hey, there's nobody coming left, nobody coming right, let me proceed through the light. Is that okay? No. I have the free will to do so. But the laws of the land will be forced upon me. And thus I will receive a ticket. If I do it often enough, what happens?
You lose your license.
My right to drive is lost. My right to drive is lost. There is an escalating level of punishment based on the severity of the crime. If I get a lot of speeding tickets and parking tickets, it may take a long time for me to lose my license. But if I'm driving drunk, will it take a long time to lose my license?
No, sir, no problem.
Right? So the punishment is in accordance with the crime. Right? That's a just system. So we have these authorities. But the ultimate authority we know is Krishna. And in that, Krishna has empowered certain personalities, the different Manus, So in the day of Brahma, there are 14 Manus who reign. And each Manu is in charge of overseeing we can say, activities, organizing the activities of the different living entities. And so they author the Manu Samhitas. And in the Manu Samhitas, there are different laws, rules that must be followed. Now, these laws are far, far superior to man's laws. How good are man's laws?
Not really.
Not very good, right? We have lots of laws. But do we have a law-abiding society?
Not really.
Because the laws that we create are not based on Shastra. Because God's laws are perfect. Why? Because God's love for every living entity is perfect. So the laws he enacts are those that care for all of God's children. And so those laws are perfect. But man's laws are made in a way for some motive. To give me power, to give me control, to give people I like prosperity, and to give people I dislike poverty. Right? These laws are all biased by our conditioning. But when Krishna creates laws, or empowers the Manus through the Manu Samhita to create laws, these laws are perfect. Because they are free of self-motive. They are truly objective. Right? So Krishna is telling Arjuna to kill. Now, we know that ahimsa is one of our Brahminical qualities. Right? What is the meaning of ahimsa? Non-violence. Non-violence to who? All living entities. Not just humans. The mosquito that is fighting and biting me, to do that is violence. I think, wow, ahimsa is pretty broad. Ahimsa is actually much broader than that. Violence isn't physical violence. Because you know what is more violent than a hand or a fist or a knife?
Nah.
If someone comes and slaps me, that will sting. But somebody speaks something about me, that sting will last far longer. So the principle of ahimsa means that we should speak in a way that does not disturb anyone. So it's not just, oh, I'm peaceful to all living entities, but then I speak in a way that gives disheartened feelings for others. No. So one should be very careful that ahimsa applies also to the tongue and how we speak. So ahimsa is very broad. So now why Krishna is he going against this principle of ahimsa? Because he's telling Arjuna that he should kill. So we know, according to the Manu Samhita, there are authorized reasons why one should kill. But also according to one's designation. Meaning there are different orders of society. There are Shudras, there are Vaishyas, there are Kshatriyas, there are Brahmanas. Brahmana is never authorized to kill. A Vaishya, never authorized to kill. A Shudra, never authorized to kill. But who is authorized? A Kshatriya. But not according to one's own impulses, but according to the need of the land, according to the laws of Shastra. And when one enacts God's laws, we see something nice, which is that both parties benefit. When a person is thrown into prison, society benefits because that person is removed from society. But that person doesn't necessarily benefit. They call them correctional facilities, but in reality they're not. Right? But here, Srila Prabhupada is explaining that when a murderer is killed, who is benefited most? The murderer. Right? So Prabhupada writes, a life for life is just punishment for a person who as cruelly and shamelessly lives at the cost of another's life. So in the verse, Krishna says that deserves to kill for his own well-being. How is that for his own well-being? There was just a case that was sentenced, I think, yesterday and last day. This, University of Idaho killing. And 4 students were killed a few years ago by this one individual. And he pled not guilty initially. And then, in order to avoid the death penalty, he pled guilty. According to this, what should he have done? Taken the death penalty. Why? Because when one, according to Shastra, in this act, when one's life is taken after having taken someone else's life, one avoids the sinful reactions that are destined for such a person. And those sinful reactions that are stored in one's account are not fun. And Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport, this is the least of their punishment, which is to end their life. So, the benefit accrues primarily to the committer of the crime. Because if he's permitted to live, he will have to bear the weight of those sinful reactions. So this punishment is just out of compassion, not out of cruelty. It is not cruelty meeting cruelty. Understand? Ashwatthama performed a cruel action. Right? Very cruel, killing the sleeping children of the Pandavas. So, this is not out of cruelty, Arjuna killing, an eye for an eye. No. This is to seek compassion. And this is a very important principle that applies to us. We might think, what is the relevance to us? That when somebody, criticizes us or performs some action against us, our conditioned response is to fight back. But actually, the best response is to have compassion on that person. Why they are misbehaving towards us? One of two reasons. Either my own misbehavior, or that person's impurities. So an intelligent person doesn't slap back, but instead prays for that person, tries to uplift that person in whatever capacity they have, and remains tolerant. You know, His Holiness Bhakti Ashray Vaishnava Maharaj was here recently, and he gave this beautiful story of the priest in Sriranga who was on his way to take bath and, was disturbed by, a great devotee who was sleeping on the banks of the river. And I was stunned in this story because the priest took a rock and threw it at this devotee sleeping and hurt him. He was bleeding. And then he awoke. How did the devotee respond? I'm sorry I disturbed your morning rituals and your pathway to taking bath. I have created a disturbance in your service to the Lord. How many of us could respond in such a way? But this is devotional quality. This is Vaishnava etiquette. And it manifests from the purity of the heart. It won't manifest by some self-help book, by some, other external means. It will manifest as the heart pure, because this is the natural quality of the devotee. So when Arjuna is going to kill Ashwatthama, it is out of compassion to free that person from so much future suffering, not out of revenge. You killed my sons, I will kill you. It looks externally like that. That is why we have to study Shrimadbhagavatam from the words and eyes of the pure devotee. And Srila Prabhupada explains to us very clearly here. Krishna says, kill because for his own well-being. And then Srila Prabhupada explains how this happens, how Ashwatthama will be benefited. So our senseless killing goes beyond just, we say, I'm not involved in killing anybody, I'm good. So Srila Prabhupada explains that the rules apply to all living entities. Right? I'm just trying to find the actual... Even the killer of animals is considered to be a murderer. Because no animal is meant to be the food for humans. In the animal kingdom, animals eat animals. That is sanctioned. There's no karma, there's no sin. For the tiger killing the deer, no sin. But for the human killing the deer, big sin. Not small sin, big sin. Because animals are also living entities, part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. If you give harm to a parent's child who maybe is less obedient than another child, will it be happy? It'll be okay, no problem? No. So how Krishna will be happy if we take the life of any living entity? Any living entity. It's not possible. So some will claim, well, no, in Shastra there is sanction for animal killing, and Srila Prabhupada references this. But before I get to that point, I wanted to read this italics point. he makes, that the animal killing, who is culpable? Everyone involved in the process. One who brings the animals to the slaughterhouse. You see on the road these horrific scenes of people driving these trucks full of animals. They have no idea how much destruction they're doing to themselves. Because they are culpable. The person who put the bricks and built the slaughterhouse, they're culpable. The person who made the machines that are used, they're culpable. The person who actually performs the act, they're culpable. The shopkeeper who has the items, they're culpable. Everyone is culpable. Now we wonder why there's so much suffering in society. How many animals are killed every day to satisfy this 1 square inch of the body? How many lives are shamelessly slaughtered? And then we wonder, why is there so much suffering in the world? Why is God so evil? Why does he, punish us so much? How much suffering we are giving to others. Of course, not all of you who are relishing Radha Kundri Hari Prasadam up to our ears, but speaking in society in general. So it's very broad based. I'll just make one final comment before we have some discussion. This topic of animal slaughter in Shastra, it's there. And Srila Prabhupada references. When the animal is sacrificed in the altar, what happens? The animal is promoted to human form of life. But don't think, okay, yeah, I am killing these animals because I'm going to liberate them. One has to be extremely qualified to be able to achieve such an outcome. And even in this sanction, where it is sanctioned for animal killing, you want to hear the process? It's quite appropriate for this verse and also today. So if you want to eat meat, there is a sanction. It's not a blessing. It is a concession. If you have no control of the tongue, then you can eat meat. But you cannot eat any animal. You can only eat a goat. But you cannot eat anytime you want. You can only eat on the day of Amavas. But if you want to eat, you have to personally kill the animal. Not when you want. You have to kill in the middle of the night, so that the sane people will not be disturbed. Not anywhere. You have to do in the temple of Kali. Not that you have to slit the throat any old way. How you have to slit the throat? You have to be looking eye to eye at the goat. You want more?
Yeah.
What is one more?
You sit on the day.
You have to chant one mantra into the ear of the goat. And this mantra, if you understand, you would never do this again. What you chant? Mam Saha. I am doing to you, I bless you to do to me. and then you slept. What sane person? So there's a concession. But the concession is meant that to go through all this extreme, at least you are minimizing the sin, but hopefully through some basic intelligence realizing this is not to be done. So it is not an authorized activity, it's a concession. So the point is that we must live a life of ahimsa, of nonviolence, to all, not forgetting the way in which we are mostly violent is through the misuse of our tongue, our speaking. And this killing must be done on the basis of authority. And not man's laws, but God's laws. Because God's laws are perfect. Man's law says it's okay to slaughter an animal. But God's law says it's not. Ultimately, we have to answer to God's laws. So when Krishna says, kill Ashwatthama, do it. Of course, we know, is he going to kill Ashwatthama? No. Yes. Stay tuned. Stay tuned. The mystery, the drama unfolds further. So he's going to disobey Krishna? We'll see. Is the absolute truth? What to do? We're going to see in that coming verses. Gone through our Shrimadbhagavatam ki. Any questions, comments, discussion?
Prabhu, I have a comment. I'm from Alabama, and this story is the story of thousands of people in Alabama. My best friend, when he was in high school, his family had 4 industrial chicken houses. Each house had 10,000 chickens in it. Every 6 weeks, they would drop off the chicks. They start them on this feeder food, which has arsenic in it, which boosts their growth. So they eat this food for like 4 of the 6 weeks. At the end of that period, the company comes back with a detox food to flush the arsenic out of the chicken. And more times than not, that truck would be late if it came at all. So you've got 40,000 chickens every 6 weeks, one family in thousands in Alabama. And every 6 weeks, they're raised, and then they get taken, they come load them up and take them and slaughter them. And he also had a cattle farm and sold hundreds of cows for slaughter. And the odd thing is that he was a drug addict. He was a recovering drug addict. He had been sober for like 10 years and got his degree in addiction therapy and was a counselor for 10 years for addicts. In the end, he lost his license and he lost his life to a fentanyl overdose. So when you look at what we were just discussing in lieu of all those actions, and they did this for like 10 years, so there were literally millions of chickens just from that one family in Alabama. And at the time, like I said, there were probably over 1,000 families in Alabama. And as a matter of fact, when I was in high school, one of the plants that became Tyson chicken ran an incubator facility. And the incubators were as big as this room, loaded completely with eggs, waiting for them to hatch and get out into the chicken houses. And they take the chicks, the baby chicks when they're just a day old, when they hatch, and they stick their beak to this hot iron, which burns their beak, and it keeps them from pecking each other to death. So these chickens are like living in horrid conditions. Those houses, you can smell the houses for literally miles away.
That's the suffering that they will endure, and it's why we have to spread this consciousness
Yeah.
far and wide, because, most of these people are doing it out of complete ignorance. Just complete ignorance.
Yes. No, they had no idea what they were doing.
Yeah, and avidya is, but it's no excuse.
No.
Right? If I'm driving on the road and I don't know the speed limit, is that going to get me off from a ticket? No, because the officer is going to say, listen, if you're going to drive on the road, it's your duty to know the speed limit. Similarly, if we're going to live in this world, it is our duty to know the laws of God. So ignorance is not an excuse. They will have to suffer from those. Any other comments or questions? Yeah? Go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thanks for the class. I have two questions. My first one is, you said ahimsa at any case it's not acceptable. What if it's in a life dangerous threatening situation? What to do in that situation?
Yeah, I mean, thankfully those situations are far and few between.
Yeah.
But there's a self-preservation aspect again, where one might have to protect themselves. Self-defense. Again, these circumstances thankfully become far and few between, and the motive there is again that I'm protecting my body as a vehicle that is used to serve Krishna, not as a vehicle to gratify my senses. Right? So there are instances in which, one might have to, self-defend. But in 99.9999 cases, there is always an extraction opportunity to remove oneself from such a circumstance. But of course, there might be, a situation here or there. But the principle is still that we should avoid it to the ultimate possibility. In which case, yes, there might be some need. Your second question?
My second question is, we have seen the various types of people getting the karma, like sin of killing that animal, right, bro? So we know, many of our students, in universities, we work as a student dining workers in part-time, as part-time student. So in that, even though we know all this, some days we are subjected to work on the shifts where we are subjected to distribute the meat that is being cooked by them. So in that case, we will be getting karma. So how to...
Don't do that work. We should not do that work. We should find some means of work that is clean. Clean meaning that doesn't implicate us in that thing. I'll tell one short story. We were on walk with my spiritual master, His Holiness Gopal-Krishna Goswami Maharaj, and he had this very unique ability. He could hear everything, and so there was a big group, and I was all the way in the back, and somebody, I am in the business and I have dental clinics, and somebody mentioned that, similar in dental clinics where the companies are buying many clinics and managing them, it's happening in the vet business, in the veterinary care, business. And so I made a comment that yes, that's also a very good business because people will pay anything for their pets. And I was maybe 10, 15 feet behind Nirmaj, and I was speaking to somebody else. I thought a quiet way not to disturb. So we came back to the house, and I had the service of giving him something he would drink after, and so I was in his room, and he said to me, "Don't get into the pet business because you'll have to feed meat to the animals." I was like, wow. I had no plan. But she was so careful that even feeding it to the animals that's their diet, we should avoid. So we find some professions that don't implicate us in that activity to the best that we can. Because there's karma. I don't want to sugarcoat it and tell you it's okay. I'd be lying to you. Right?
That will include the zoos, right?
Yeah, zoos are horrific. What are zoos? We go to entertain ourselves at the expense of the animal. That animal is locked in a cage, stuck in that environment. Right? That is not, for our entertainment, we have to see that at the expense of these animals. So zoos are not. I was once asked to join the board of the Detroit Zoo.
Oh, wow.
I refused because it's not a good experience for those animals.
Never thought about that way.
The problem is because society conditions us so strongly, that we separate, what I'm eating on my plate from the reality of what's happening. It's crazy. It's crazy. There's a society called Michigan Humane. And they're all animal lovers. And how many of them are vegetarian?
Yeah. So few.
Hardly any of them.
Yeah.
Right? Loving animals. But I love dogs, but not chickens. The same people will criticize, other cultures who might eat dogs.
Right.
But, yeah, okay.
Prime example, what you're talking about with the dogs or animals, period, in the Michigan Humane Society. Like, by being vegetarian, by being vegan, we are naturally animal lovers. So, RNG, renewable natural gas, methane, the process they use, the dead livestock, they use dead animals. That's why right now, the state of Michigan leads the nation in euthanization. They're not taking the time out to find harmful things or foster them. Also, on the ingredients in your food, snacks, as it use bioengineering. Bioengineering is dead baby fetus. Number 3, they also are the black market for human parts. So that's part of the decaying process. When I was talking about the anaerobic digestate, the organic waste and the manure from the farm to the cows, this is all a process. So they add that ingredients of the dead babies, of the dead animals, of the black market. So that's why all the different things in politics and policies, legislation dealing with abortion, all 4 tie in. So every time somebody turns on a hot water that uses gas, all 4 of those ingredients are being applied to your body. They're karma. So this is and heating your food. The karma. You're using all 4 of those ingredients without Christmas period.
Yeah, and that's the reality. And, Srila Prabhupada taught us, sadly we have to live in the condition of society that we're in. And there are limitations to what we can do,
Yeah.
The example was given of fish oil and milk. And they would tell Srila Prabhupada, there's fish oil and milk, what to do? He says, well, we have to offer the milk to the Lord. It's not the best of solutions, and then we know, of course, how milk is, produced in this country.
Not very pleasantly.
No, so, I don't want to get into that debate. That's a personal situation. But the point is, Kali Yuga, the situation has degraded so much that we are virtually, surrounded by it, no matter how much we try. So we have to take that as a serious indication that we have to take this process of devotional service very seriously and finish our business and get out. I mean, Srila Prabhupada writes, this material world is made for an opportunity for the conditioned soul to become free. we're stuck in this prison house and it's getting worse and worse and worse. The condition is worse and worse. And we think, tomorrow I'll get serious. We should take to the process. Be serious in our spiritual practice. Determined. Consistent. Disciplined. If we understood the stakes, if we truly understood the ramifications, if you are stuck in a dark well for years with no hope of getting out of that well, suffering endlessly, and it took a little bit of discipline to get out, would that discipline be hard to enact? If it took a little bit of consistency to get out, would that consistency be hard to enact? If it took a little bit of austerity, a little sacrifice? No. So why is it difficult for us to enact that discipline, that austerity, that consistency in our spiritual practice? Because of Maya, we become illusioned to the very treacherous condition we are in. I hate to be so negative, but it's just a reality. But thankfully, Srila Prabhupada has given us this gift of Grantharaj Shrimadbhagavatam, this Devasadan Mandir, Radha Kunja. It's an oasis. It's a place of shelter, but we have to take advantage of it by applying ourselves, overcoming the difficulties, coming and being part of the Lord's mission. Then we can make success.
Earlier, he was talking about how you gotta look at go in his eyes and whisper the mantra in his ear. When he said that, it reminded me of the first Avatar, when she was talking to the animal in the forest, and she told him she don't have to take his life and pray to the ancestors for his sacrifice.
Yeah, it's the origin of everything we see is in the spiritual world.
Yeah, and she had the same symbols for the face painting. I recognize that too.
Okay, anything else? Otherwise, we'll continue tomorrow. Text number 38, which has no purport, so we'll read 38 and 39. Grantharaj Shrimadbhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you. It's been a